Oh, hey, caught me off guard. I was having a drink. Salud. Welcome to Jack's Place. Tonight, because it's Memorial Day weekend, I'm drinking Heroes vodka. Made in America. A Marine is responsible for that stuff. Salute, Travis McVeigh. And I got a little vodka cran. And then I'm going to be drinking something different in a little while, and I'll tell you why. So what is Jack's Place exactly? It's 1 hour of me and you. That's it. Having a drink. I will have a guest tonight. I promise you he'll be very interesting. We'll have a lot of fun with him. Maybe he'll have a drink. Maybe he won't, just like with you. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. What do we talk about on Jack's Place? Well, whatever you want to. You can ask me anything. Same with my guest. It's wide open. As you probably know, I used to do a show called Booze Traveler on Travel Channel. And I did that for 4 years. We went to, 50 or 60 countries. That's one of them. That was Brazil. I posted that on social media this week. Cruising down the Amazon as a storm enveloped us. They said, get out on the boat and smile. That would be a fun picture. I had an acai cocktail in my hand. And it was, hi, Amy House says, hi, Amy. And in this was a drink. A bar in the jungle let me make this drink with acai and different things and lime and whatever. I put all the coconut, I put all the stuff together. And they say, you can name it. We'll put it on the menu. And being a Casablanca fan, I named it Acai is just acai from the song. So we could talk about that. The stupid names I have for cocktails. Also this, I used to do a thing called Name That Quarantine. While we were in lockdown, I figured I'd teach myself a skill like that, the guitar. And I did, and I put a bunch of them online, and then it busted, actually. It fell over. So I have an idea. You tell me throughout the course of this show tonight if you would like me to sign that and auction it off for a charity. If I get enough people saying yes and saying they would bid on it, that's exactly what I'll do. Caveat emptor, though. Buyer beware. It's broken, as you can see. I don't know what good it would be. Jack Maxwell sold me a broken guitar, but it's for a good cause. We'll find a really good, worthy charity, and we'll auction it off. The good thing is you don't have to donate if you don't want to. Also, we could talk about the high road. And, of course, by donate, I mean if you want to auction, bid on the guitar is all, of course. Anyway, this is called The High Road. It's a show I'm doing now that airs every Friday night. We start with a Q&A just like this one, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. And last week's guest was Al Harrington, former NBA basketball player. I think if we're going to show a clip, let's do that, or maybe just have this photo up. I'm not sure. But Al Harrington, as you know, played for a bunch of teams and in China, 16 years. And now he's a cannabis entrepreneur. And he was inspired. All of this was inspired by his wonderful grandmother, Viola, whom he named the company after. Also, there was an episode before that. We're too deep now. I don't know how many weeks we'll do it, at least 20. And that's going to be every Friday night. So sign up now. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't yet. Hit notifications. And here's another reason why. Next week on Jack's Place, I will have 2, maybe 3 of you as my guests. If you sign up for YouTube, you subscribe to my channel this week, let's say in the next 72 hours, I will choose a couple of you and have you on as guests. We'll have a cocktail together. And this guest I'm about to introduce you to, it'll be like that. We'll talk to you and everyone here. I'll welcome you into Jack's Place, and we'll learn a little bit about you. So if you don't want to, you can still subscribe to my YouTube channel and say, I don't want to get chosen. I just want to be a part of whatever you're doing on YouTube. So Belly Up is another thing that I'm doing. It's a trivia game show where we have a drink, and we have a couple of right here. That's a cut from the worst possible picture you could have found of me. Anyway, there you go. We don't have the green screen anymore. You'll recognize some people you see. Some of them are from Hollywood. Some of them are just my friends. Some are both. Some are people that are fans of the shows or any of the shows that I've done, and they come on. They've, as you know, there's a list you can get on to get chosen for the show. So we release one of those a week. That's Belly Up, trivia game show. The High Road, which is my journey through cancer and chemo and CBD and discovery that a lot of people around the country are doing the same thing I am. Not a fan of cannabis, or certainly not a user, not a big user before this. And then boom, there you go. You find out that maybe CBD and even medicinal THC can be good for what ails you. In my case, it was neuropathy from the chemo for my non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. If you don't know, neuropathy is severe nerve pain, and because chemo's no day at the beach, I'll tell you that. Enjoying a nice glass of wine, said somebody, but that's okay. So that's the thing. Hello from Boise. Hi, Rob Bob. Is that your real name, Rob Bob? In any event, make any comment you want to, anything at all you want to ask me or the guest, but let's get to them, because you don't find many people like this guy. I'll tell you that. How many times have you met someone who's a microbiologist? And this guy's a microbiologist specializing in infectious diseases with an emphasis on studying and handling anthrax. Yeah, that's what I said. He has a PhD from the University of California at Berkeley. He decides he's going to throw all that away. I mean, he'll still have it. He's not really throwing it away, but taking a sharp left turn, let's say, into the world of making booze. So he decided to do that instead. He has a company called Vitae Spirits out of Charlottesville, Virginia. Small batch distillery. And that's it right there. So, this is going to be interesting. I mean, what a boring life this guy has led. Oh, my goodness. I can't wait to talk to him. Say hi to Ian Glomsky. Hi, Ian. How are you?
Hey, how's it going, Jack?
It's going great. How are you?
Really good. Happy drinking a little champagne right now, actually. So,
what I'm saying? I'm sorry. What was that?
I'm drinking a little champagne right now.
What are you celebrating? Let's toast. What do you got?
Well, honestly, I'm in Arizona. We're launching our products in Arizona. So I'm here kind of doing a little training of sales staff and things of that sort. So it's something new for us. First time past the Mississippi.
No kidding. So yeah. I thought, since you have such an interesting life, of course I was joking about it being boring, that we would try to give equal weight to both sides of that proverbial coin, if you will.
Yeah.
Cover both sides of the street, because I think they're both fascinating. Clearly, it's Jack's place and we have a drink. It would be easy to go into the booze part only, but you're a fascinating cat, I got to say. So we'll just bounce back and forth. Is that cool?
Sure. Yeah. I'd love to chat about all that stuff.
Fantastic. Okay. So we all know that you shouldn't stereotype people because it's cheap and it's easy. However, the way our minds work is we use shortcut to figure out situations, right? A tiger is running at you, growling. You don't check to see if he's got teeth or if his claws are sharp. You just fight or flight. You get out of there. That's it, to save your life, okay? But in groups of people, of course, and certainly individuals, we should never paint with that wide brush and say, I know that this person or this group is like that a certain way, because that's dangerous. Of course, that's not helpful at all. You'll see what I'm getting to here in a second. If you were going to cast somebody in a movie, it would make sense if he was an athlete to be big and strong, or she would be very athletic, have that kind of form. Basketball player, generally tall, I suppose. A professor, maybe professorial. What does that mean? Glasses, pocket protector, who knows? Again, you don't want to stereotype, but you're making it easy for people to understand a situation. And I'm talking about now with movies and television. So I'd like to start off, if we can, I would like you to bust one myth about microbiologists, because I'm sure we all have a picture when we hear that term. What do you got?
I don't think I've ever been asked that question, but I certainly have an answer for you. So something that I think people miss about scientists is creativity. So people kind of think scientists are always like crunching the numbers, they're robots. But to be like the best scientists are the most creative people. Like they pull all this information from lots of different places, synthesize in their head, and come up with a totally new idea. And that's like, those scientists are the best, and they're the ones that make like game-changing discoveries because that level of creativity that they can tap into.
So you would say scientists, generally speaking, microbiologists, are more creative than people think.
Very much so. It's a different type of creativity. I mean, you don't have like a pretty picture on the wall or a new dish or something like that. But in the realm of science, that like you tap into that very basic human trait of creativity, of kind of like coming up with new ideas. And that is what scientists should be. They're not automatons filling out dumb little numbers and putting it into a writ form in some way.
I think a great personification of that, Ian, is Einstein. I mean,
Yeah.
certainly the genius of all geniuses, maybe, right? Certainly in the last 100 years or so. And then you have him saying imagination is more important than knowledge.
Oh, absolutely.
So he backs up what you said. That's a good start. You got Einstein on your side. Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Start cooking.
So back in the day, you were a young man. You started making beer, but it was bitter because of the bacteria, lactobacillus, which is basically what makes yogurt what it is. And you were unhappy about that. It bothered you. If we were talking about wine, I would say that would just be sour grapes. But we're talking about beer. And so you went into microbiology in order to fix your beer. Is that right?
I would say so. Like it was also curiosity. I mean, it was something new to me. It was a new hobby or whatever. And so things weren't going like I expected. So one way to learn more about it is to sign up for a microbiology course and figure out what's going on. I mean, so that's what I signed up for, a microbiology course in college, started taking samples from that crappy beer and figuring out what was going on, what was growing in there. It was a kind of a extra credit project for me to do that I was just interested in. So it was a fun thing to do.
You're into infectious diseases, and I don't mean into them, but you certainly know all about them. So we have one of those floating around right now. It's causing a lot of damage. So I got to ask you a very important question: soap or sanitizer?
Soap. Soap's the way to go. Keeps it from smelling bad too at the same time.
What are you saying? All right. So explain briefly why soap over sanitizer.
No, it's universal. So soap kills lots of different things. It kills it, for one thing. It actually destroys viruses. It destroys bacteria, but also it cleans the surface. You can kill it, and that's one way to stop from getting infected. But you can also just knock it away. When you're washing your hands underwater, they go away. And so it's a double whammy. Rather than just killing, it's physical removal of the things from that surface also. So I'm always pro soap in a lot of different ways. It's simple. It's not flammable like hand sanitizer.
I saw that online. That was great. Turn off the light and it's still on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that, folks, but check it out. Scary stuff, I guess. But who's going to set that on fire anyway? That doesn't make any sense.
Well, bored people in quarantine, they do crazy things.
Yeah, like this. I create a show called Jack's Place. Who cares about that? All right.
Yeah.
So next question. I have a little surprise for you. You recognize that?
Oh yeah. You know what's funny? I have one of those too, right here.
Oh, and this was not planned, folks. He didn't know I had this, by the way. That's his rum. I made a rum punch. Even though you're drinking champagne, you're celebrating your launch in Arizona. I happen to be in Phoenix. I know you're not in Phoenix. You're somewhere else, right?
Yeah, up north.
Okay, so we'll have to celebrate in person at some point. But the question is, as I show right here, there we go. That's the name of your company.
Yep.
Pronounced Vitae. Yep. I guess we can be forgiven, since you come from academia, that we might think it was curriculum vitae, which is life's course or life lesson, or how there's a lot of ways to interpret that, of course. But why Vitae? Why call it that? Where does that come from?
It's a little bit of a long story, but here is as short as I can make it.
Okay, good.
But the distillation process, making high-proof spirits, is pretty new. It was kind of like the Middle Ages in a sense. And it was developed by alchemists that were looking for the elixir of youth. So something you drink keeps you young forever. They did the first distillation. So it was actually wine. They turned wine into brandy. A liquid came out. They were looking to do an experiment on it to see whether it keep things young. They tossed a pear in it. As we know now, alcohol is a preservative. It keeps things from going bad. It pickles them. But that pear never went bad. So they interpreted that as that liquid was infusing life force into that pear to keep it from going bad. And so aqua, water, vitae, life, water of life. And that same word, when it was translated into Gaelic, uskabahe, that became whiskey.
Sure.
It became akavit up in the Scandinavian countries.
Sure.
It became eau de vie in France. So there's kind of all this coming together, revolving around life and life force. So that's kind of where I came up with the name. The pronunciation, I quote unquote pronounced it wrong for a while, but a Latin professor came in and did a little tour of the facility and said, actually, in North America, it's vitae. It's VT in the UK. In Britain, they would say aqua vitae. In North America, our pronunciation of that Latin word is vitae. So that's what I learned.
There you go. All right, back over to science. As I said earlier, there's this thing going around that's creating quite havoc around the world, and I don't mean to trivialize it or have too much fun with it, because it's a horrible thing and it's causing so much damage. But you're a guy who studied this, if not COVID-19, of course, but infectious diseases.
Yeah.
I think there not enough people are giving credence to what experts say about things. If you were going to have open heart surgery, you would go to a guy who's really good at it. You wouldn't say he doesn't know what he's doing, I'm going to a plumber. So I don't understand why we aren't listening more to the experts. That being said, if someone were following your example, how are you handling this? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a loaded question, because it's an answer that every single person has to answer for themselves. It's kind of like, you have to kind of, I guess, make an analysis about how at risk you are. Are you a person that has lots of problems? Do you have an immune deficiency? Do you have heart problems? Are you older? Things of that sort. Honestly, I am a pretty healthy middle-aged dude that has very few risk factors. So I personally am not like fearful of getting the coronavirus. That being said, I'm a unit in a society where I don't want to get sick and then kill a bunch of people I know, older folks I know, or something like that too. So I'm fairly careful, but I'm not running under a dome of fear. I'm very concerned and being responsible about how I deal with the virus, but I'm not cringing and letting it kind of like invade my life, and I'm not losing sleep about it, specifically from fear of getting the coronavirus or something.
I think that's the wild card right there, though. You say you don't want to hurt other people. Because I heard people say, oh, a lot more people die every year from smoking, but that's your own choice. If you decide to do that, that's up to you. Yes, secondhand smoke, we can get into all that. But I mean, if you get sick with this, even if you survive it, you can get other people sick, and you can kill them as well. Which, you know, I wouldn't want to do that. I don't want to get it. I don't want to give it to anybody. And I know that even if you get it and survive it, from what I understand, there are peer-reviewed studies that say you get permanent lung damage. Some people have been doing that. So who wants to live with that, right?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And that's why, like, I have no desire to get it.
So you're being careful?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I wash my hands a lot.
Wash your hands all the time. That's the key, right?
Yeah, and that's a lot of it. And as you know, like, there's been a whole debate about all the masks and everything too. And really, the consensus is, for the most part, the masks protect other people. It's not like you're not protecting yourself so much. So it's more of a concern for others that you don that mask. So, and the truth is that this is getting a little bit abstract, but this is nature. We've been lucky.
Little Darwinism at work?
What's that?
Little Darwinism at work, maybe?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, I guess in some ways, but we've just been lucky that we haven't had things like this in a long time. And essentially,
maybe the Spanish flu. I know in the 50s we had quite an event as well.
Yeah, the Asian flu in the 50s, which got a lot of people. So, and the truth is that it's another one of those things, though, where the more people you have on the planet, the more mobile we are, the higher risk of things like this getting out of control are going to be. And it's the reality. And that's humans. I find often we've kind of become, I wouldn't say exactly complacent, but we've gotten used to being in control. And every now and then something like this comes along and that just goes and shows us that ecology and nature still has a very heavy influence on our day-to-day life, whether we like to admit that or not.
I think the psychology of it is very interesting, and that's not necessarily a good thing. I heard there were some places, some stores, a business, without getting too deep into this, of course, that don't let people in if they are wearing masks. If you decide to wear a mask, they won't let you in because they think it's ridiculous. Which,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's like saying we don't allow blacks in, we don't allow Jews. We
Yeah.
don't, to cut your customer base off based on what they're wearing. It's not obscene. It's not pornographic.
Yeah.
If you have a mask on, you're protecting other people.
Yeah.
You're not
You're
saying
not hurting anybody by doing it.
you're saying I don't want you to get it. It seems like a common form of courtesy. I don't understand that mentality.
No, I know. And and you're getting into the psychology of what's going on right now, and things.
Well, teach me, Sensei.
No, I mean, I'm not a psychoanalyst in any way, but I am distraught by the way that this has become an issue. Like, I mean, this should not be an issue. I think it's very clear that you wearing a mask does no harm. Like, you're not hurting anybody by wearing a mask.
I agree.
So that should be.
And for those who think this is political, just like Memorial Day weekend, which is why I had that drink with Heroes vodka, made by a Marine. Neither side of the political aisle, can claim patriotism, love of country. And if you think that, you're deluding yourself. And by the way, you're insulting the people who gave their lives on both sides.
Yeah. No, it's very true.
If you wear a mask, it doesn't mean anything other than you want to keep people safe. It's no political statement to say, okay, experts for the sake of others, then I will. I don't understand.
I wish that was true, but that is not the current dynamic. I mean, that's what Charlottesville is kind of it's a university town in central Virginia. But right over the mountains from us is the Shenandoah Valley, which is very much a farming community. Lots of chicken farms, lots of horses, things of that sort. And that's where our assistant distiller lives there. So it's a kind of a different culture over there. And he literally has told me that he got used to wearing his mask in Charlottesville. But when he goes home to the valley, people make fun of him for wearing the mask. They give him shit for... Am I allowed to swear on this? Sorry.
Sure. That's okay.
They give him shit for wearing the mask. I mean,
don't worry about it.
Like, they're just giving them like charisma about it. So, yeah, it's a shame that such a basic courtesy has become a political tribal identity. Like, if you're wearing a mask, you're with this tribe. If you're not wearing a mask, you're with this tribe. And it's a shame that it's come to that.
Agreed. Let's get back to drinks. So it so happens Vitae Spirits makes a lot of different liquors, but we both have a bottle of rum. So let's talk about that. You're in Charlottesville, Virginia, as you said, and as I said earlier.
Yep.
Now we know rum comes from sugarcane, and sugarcane doesn't grow that far north.
No.
How is that? How is that the thing you make the most? It's great that you do it because it's not on the nose, so to speak. Yeah. But how do you decide to make rum? Yeah.
So it's. Whenever I answer a question, I usually have lots of different reasons. There's a couple of them. So one is that simply the local market in Virginia. If you sign a little contract with the Virginia state government saying that 70% of your starting materials will come from Virginia, then you're available, like you can apply for agricultural grants. So in a sense, you get help by the government if you use local ingredients. So that sounds great, and I'm all for that. But that is a market incentive for people to essentially make whiskey in Virginia because we can't grow sugar cane and stuff like that there.
A lot of grain up there.
Yeah. So 95% of the booze that's produced in Virginia is a whiskey because there's an incentive by the state to do it. So me looking at a market that is really saturated with whiskey, I'm looking to do something a little bit different. So this is one of those things. Like, essentially, when I was putting together the business plan and everything, I was really there was maybe one or two other distilleries in all of Virginia that were doing anything like rum, but they weren't focusing on it. I wanted to make that our modus operandi, our focus, so that we became the rum of Virginia. So that's one reason. It's also, I like rum a lot too. I mean, you have to work on something that you love. So
I love rum too, with a short period in between. When I was a little kid, I loved pirates because I wanted to get away from Boston. Not that I didn't love Boston, but everybody wants to travel. There's a pirate right there with some rum. So they go hand in hand, so to speak, literally in this case. And I loved everything about pirates. First of all, I love Pirates of the Caribbean. That's great, right?
And they're rebels.
Huh?
And they're rebels, like they're badass.
They're rebels, but they get to be on a ship, and they have all these great adventures, and they get Spanish doubloons, and they get parrots, and there's white sands and blue water. It was the opposite of my life, in other words. So I said, what do pirates drink? And someone said rum. I said, great. I'm going to have some rum when I get a chance. I was either 6 or 7. My mother comes home from a wedding and has two big fat pieces of rum cake. She puts in the fridge. She tells me it's rum cake as we go to bed, or I go to bed, or she goes, stays up and watches TV. Whatever the deal is, I know there's rum cake in the fridge the next morning, and this is on a weekend. So I get up and I eat that rum cake as much as fast as I can because I want to be a pirate. I get so sick. She gets up and I'm sick and I'm nauseous and I'm pretty sure I was throwing up. She said, "What the hell did you do?" I said, "Oh, I drank that. I ate that rum cake. That's horrible. That doesn't taste like anything good that a pirate would have." She says, "First of all, rum and rum cake are two different things. The alcohol in the rum is not good, but you ate too much. You ate too fast, and you can't be a pirate just because you drink rum. There's more to it."
Yeah.
I thought it was such a great answer. So I didn't have rum for the longest time because I got sick. Then I eased my way back into it at a certain age. We won't say what it was. And now I love it. And for the same reasons too. So I'm glad you're making rum, and I'm glad I was able to score a bottle. Chance to talk to you. Let's talk about something a little more serious. People are writing about it and they're asking, anthrax. The last time I heard that, I think I was watching Silence of the Lambs or something. Hannibal Lecter. Anthrax Island, Clarice. You don't hear anthrax anymore. A week after the 9/11 attacks, someone sends an envelope to American media, which published National Enquirer.
Yep.
And this guy, Bob Stevens, 63 years old, he's an employee. The first one, he passes away from it. And then they target the media. Employees from CBS, NBC are affected, ABC. A 7-month-old baby of a staffer at ABC was affected by anthrax. Postal workers, probably inadvertently, because they were sending this through the mail. 5 people end up dying. It's a long, horrible affair. Everybody's afraid, especially on the heels of 9/11. Stephen Hatfill is a scientist at a biodefense lab in Maryland. He's named a person of interest. He's fighting to clear his name. Reminds me of Richard Jewell with the Centennial Park bombings with the Olympics, because he's cleared. He gets a settlement for $5.8 million.
Yeah, they wrecked his life.
Yeah, it ruined his life. But then they go after this other guy, Bob Ivans, maybe was his name.
Bruce Ivans.
What is it?
Bruce Ivans.
Bruce Ivans. That's who it was. Bruce Ivans. They name him now as a person of interest. So he offs himself. He commits suicide. And then the last thing I hear, I think it was 2011, whoever it was came out and said, yes, there was a group, a study, a report says, yes, Bruce Ivans was probably the guy. Evidence points to him, but we don't have final proof, and it ends right there.
Yeah.
You decide at the time, oh, okay, let me get into anthrax. I would have gone the other way.
The timing didn't quite work out that way. So I got into anthrax basically when those initial attacks happened a little bit after 9/11.
Right.
So it was one of those things where I was at that stage in my career where I had to I came out, I got my PhD, and I had to start making my move for what my career was going to be like. And once anthrax got released, a whole bunch of money started getting poured into it from the government. So it was really attractive as a young scientist to go in that direction. And that's so I basically said, I want to be an anthrax researcher. And then I just kind of built a career that would get me the training and the expertise and stuff I needed to learn more about anthrax, I did vaccine work against anthrax during my postdoctoral work. And and that's it. So you don't hear about it that much anymore. And that's because 15 minutes of fame, essentially. People forget about it. If someone did another attack, we'd probably start hearing it again. but now it's coronavirus, or it's going to be the next thing that gains all the attention.
If there's another anthrax attack, I'm coming to you.
Well, luckily, I've been vaccinated a bunch of times, so I ought to be pretty protected from it. So
that's what I mean. I want to be around a guy who's protected. You can be my shield. You just said vaccines.
Yeah,
I think that the greatest hope for COVID-19, of course, is the introduction and discovery of a vaccine. I guess it'd be the other way around. The discovery and introduction of a vaccine certainly will help us get back to whatever normal is going to be now.
Mm-hmm.
However, on the other hand, I don't know if first, there's no guarantee. For me, it feels like waiting for Godot or even Guffman in this case. It might never come, and if it does, well, it might not do for you what you think it's going to do.
Yeah, vaccines are complicated. I mean, honestly, I think it's very likely we will get a good vaccine eventually. But honestly, like I was saying, I worked on vaccines. Basically, my research was why they did not work. The anthrax vaccine that I was working on was developed by the French army, and it made lots of antibodies against anthrax. And a lot of people think antibodies are what protect you. So this vaccine made tons of antibodies, but that wasn't the way that it worked. So biology is difficult and crafty, and I think we'll have a vaccine, but it is not a given. There's many instances of diseases that have been around for centuries that we don't have vaccines for. Malaria, tuberculosis, there's not really a good vaccine for that. There's the common cold we don't have a vaccine for. We have to rework the influenza vaccine every friggin' year.
Sure.
So it's complex, one hopes. But honestly, I think people should recognize the fact that it could be difficult, maybe not effective, and we should have backup plans. If we don't have that vaccine to get us back to normal, we have to have some type of a plan if we don't ever get that.
You said it was complex, tricky, and difficult.
Yeah.
You talked about vaccines and anthrax or getting the federal and local permits to make alcohol.
You know, it's funny you said that. I honestly, someday I'm going to write an essay and put it on the internet probably about whether it was more difficult for me to get permission to work with anthrax or for me to start making rum in Charlottesville. It's a close, I would say it's a tough race between those two about which was more difficult. So
we touched on this a little bit earlier. As a scientist, are you dismayed that we seem to be leaning away from relying on science with the Flat Earth Society, anti-vaxxers, climate deniers? This whole thing is a hoax. There's nothing wrong with believing in science. We have to agree on a set of scientific principles in order to live in the world at the same time. Just like math. If 2 and 2 is 4 over here, but 2 and 2 is 5 over there, you're going to have bridges falling down and planes falling out of the sky. Does that bother you that we seem to, I guess, give it less credence than we should?
Yeah, massively. I mean, the truth is, if you deny reality, it's going to come back and bite you in the ass also. Like, you can't pretend, you can't just make things true because you want them to be true. And it dismays me that the facts are becoming looser and looser. Really, science is our best tool. It's not a perfect tool, but it is our best tool to assess reality and at least give us the ability to predict the future and how to use those facts to save lives, to be happier, whatever it may be applied to. But it's the best tool we have. And if you throw that out the window, we're going back to witchcraft and rumors, and honestly, we'll all be hurt by it.
I couldn't agree with you more. Back to burning witches at the stake. I mean, how far back do we go, right? So when I was in high school, I had biology class, and the professor has 2 beakers, both clear liquids, one filled with alcohol, one with water.
Mm-hmm.
Drops a worm into the water one, the worm's swimming around, drops a worm into the one filled with alcohol, the worm dies right away. He says, what does that mean? I say, if you drink, you won't have worms. That's what that means. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I would never, I was never on the scholarly path like you were to academia, as I say. But now you're doing both. You went from working with germs to killing them with alcohol. Do you believe that's true? Like, when I was doing this show, when I was traveling around the world, so many cultures were giving alcohol to their sick kids. A shot of this, a shot of that. Rub it on the gums. Does it kill germs like they say? And of course, there's the push me, pull you. There's the plus, there's the minus to it. But how do you feel about that as a pure germ killer? And why did you get into making it?
Yeah. I mean, there's no doubt it kills germs, but only at high concentration. I mean, the stuff that we produce at the distillery, we're producing hand sanitizer right now at the distillery. And the WHO recipe is at 80% alcohol. That's a lot of alcohol. And honestly, once you get below 60% or so, it's not that effective anymore. So you have to maintain those super high levels for it to be effective. If you put it in your mouth, you got saliva. If you drink it, it's getting diluted through your whole body. It's not that useful in terms of like drinking it to sanitize your throat or your stomach or whatever.
How about a wound? I've seen that quite a bit in old Western movies or World War I. They would take a slug and then pour it on the wound and then take a slug.
Yeah.
Does that work or not?
I would say it depends on what they're drinking. If they're doing like high test moonshine that's up at 80% or 70% alcohol, yeah, that's pretty good. But I mean, like nowadays, most whiskey and rum is 40% alcohol or 80 proof.
I've had some of the high stuff though. Well, your rum is 40, right?
Yeah, 40% alcohol.
Yeah, it is 80 proof.
80 proof.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not exactly Navy strength.
No, you're supposed to enjoy drinking it. You're not supposed to be cleaning up cuts with it. So
nothing wrong with that. Okay, so when you went into this, you were pretty serious. You studied at the Pasteur Institute, is that right?
Yeah, that's where I did my postdoctoral work. Yeah,
who's the father of microbiology? When you were there, even for a moment, did you ever look around and say, "Wow, I'm studying with a father of microbiology, the guy who pasteurized milk"?
Yeah,
comes from his name. Did you ever look around and say, "I wonder one day if they'll say something was Glomskied"? Did you ever want your name on something?
I would say yes. I mean, everyone dreams about that stuff, and I was an researcher. But I mean, I hoped. But once again, like I was talking about before, there's a lot of kind of luck and creativity. Like you have to have these moments of clarity and make things happen to become that type of a scientist. But yeah, it was awesome being at the Institut Pasteur. He was buried under our laboratory, so he had a crypt down there, and it was really garish. It was this Byzantine tile kind of mosaics down there, and they had all these tile mosaics around his tomb of all of his great discoveries. The vaccine for anthrax. He was one of the first guys to do that. He did the vaccine for rabies. He did pasteurization. He did a lot of different amazing things.
Like playing with cows, right?
Yeah.
Vaccine came from cows. Pasteurization has to do with dairy, with milk.
Yeah. Well, vaccines are even older than Pasteur, though. Like that was when people figured out how to kind of make vaccines rationally. But historically, vaccines have been around for centuries, really. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the John Adams kind of series that PBS put on or whatever, but like they were basically just taking little ground up pieces of smallpox and grinding them into people's arms and stuff as their vaccines back then. So the idea has been around for a long time.
But he certainly had a lot to do with the advancement of it, yes?
Oh, yeah. Pasteur's one could probably argue that he is the most important human figure in infectious disease that we've had so far in our history.
And you studied there. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like it was a beautiful place too. Like 18-foot ceilings and glass windows and stuff. It was nice.
It's been a great experience for you. Okay, awesome. So back to the rum, because I love a rum punch. That's what I made with your rum. Good stuff. So I'm a traditional rum guy. I like it made from the molasses. Yeah. Agricole rum is becoming popular now, made from sugarcane juice. Yeah. What do you prefer? I know you're made from molasses, but what do you like personally?
Yeah, so that's what it's tough to say. I mean, it's one of those things where different moods, different moments. Honestly, so the rum I make at Vitae Spirits, I tried to get as close as possible to Agricole, despite the fact that you can't grow sugarcane up in Virginia.
Where do you
So
get?
Agricole is made straight from squishing the sugarcane, taking that fresh juice, letting it ferment, and turning it into rum with distill. So basically, what our starting material is evaporated sugarcane juice. We don't actually use molasses by the strict definition of molasses.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so I tried to get as close to that juice as possible, which is evaporated cane juice. So they evaporate the cane juice so that the sugar concentration gets high enough that it's a preservative. So it doesn't spontaneously ferment and start basically turning into a sugarcane beer like it does in the fields when it's fresh. So yeah, it's basically a way to give it a little bit of shelf stability so they can ship it from Louisiana up to Virginia. And I can turn it into rum essentially. So we have a lot of what I would say Agricole characteristics in our rum, but it's not an Agricole rum.
Yeah, the thing about Agricole that I'm not the biggest fan of is when it tastes grassy.
Yeah. That's something I like. Yeah, that's an aspect of it I like because I like the green herbal grassiness, and in many ways I feel like that's really getting close to the sugarcane. Molasses is basically super processed sugarcane juice, gone through tons of stuff, but the Agricole is much closer to the actual plant, and I find that attractive. I like the idea of tasting the terroir, like the geography and the biology of that which it came from. So,
and I love the notes of the molasses. So, as Louis Pasteur might say, "Vive la différence."
Yeah, right.
So, what's the best thing about being a microbiologist?
I find it fascinating about how this invisible world shapes our visible world. Whether it be me making cheese, harnessing a bunch of little microbes to make something tasty out of milk, or using these little invisible things to essentially perform magic. I mean, they take some sugar. All of a sudden, you have this booze that makes you drink and makes you drunk and makes you happy. And that's magic. I honestly, a few years ago, they called that magic. Yeah. So that's what I think. It's super cool.
I think it's cool too. One last question, and then we'll get to some questions. I know people are in line here. There's a bunch of them on the board. I don't see them necessarily, but they'll come up. This is I believe, the 40th anniversary of The Shining. Is there or is there not red rum? How do you answer that?
Oh, wow. I've seen products that are called red rum, but it is not like it's nothing in like the government's. There's not like a category of rum that the federal government recognizes or anything like that. But no, I've never seen the red rum myself.
Neither, but we've both seen murder, which is really what it was in the mirror, wasn't it? All right. So Dana Hafner wants to know, Ian, do you prefer to make beer or liquor? Different processes? Which is more interesting as a scientist?
Yeah. So I started off as a beer maker, and I did that for a very long time. And actually, I guess probably I've been making beer longer than I've been a distiller. But I do like distilling better. Being a person that's always looking to learn something and kind of keep on challenging myself, you have to be able to make a good beer to make a good whiskey. So
that is true.
Yeah. So it was kind of like once I felt very comfortable with the beer level of complexity, I brought it then to the next level of complexity, which is distillation. And so I like that level of complexity, and with kind of my chemistry background, it's actually much more applicable to distillation because it's a much more chemical kind of manufacturing process than a fermentation of a beer or something like that. So I like it a lot, and honestly, there's a lot broader range of things I can do with distillation. I know that craft breweries right now are really pushing the limits of what is beer, but when you're dealing with spirits,
cherry casks and it's all it's upside down world, all this crazy, it's so different than it ever was.
But then when I go and look at spirits and cocktails and stuff like that, the palette is so much broader of what I can do with a cocktail and you can do something totally crazy, right? But beer, there's still kind of outer limits where it's now almost no longer a beer anymore, and it loses its definition. So I like
all kinds of things in there, twigs and herbs and leaves.
Yeah.
Hey, that's great. If obviously innovation is wonderful. I mean, I love the art of making cocktails, and so I mean, they started out very basic, and now they've exploded to whatever. But hey, whatever palate decides you like, why not? Oh, it's a good question. Michelle Martin says, "Do you use a pot still or a column still?"
That's a little bit of a tough answer because the public's perception of what a column still is and what a pot still is a little bit skewed from reality. So what I will say is that we have a pot, but we hybridize that. We have a column attached to it also. So we have a hybrid column and pot still.
I see a lot of those.
Yeah, and now I would say that is the most typical craft distillery setup because it's very adaptable. You can do a lot of different things with it. When people are talking about columns, kind of in the slightly more traditional sense, that is a non-batch process. You don't like put in one load of a fermented product to make your rum. It is a constantly flowing, continuous flow column. And that's usually in the rum world, what they're talking about. It's a fairly different distillation process that is a little bit too complex for me to specifically describe those technological differences. But I would say characteristically, usually pot-produced spirits are considered heavier, more flavorful, whereas the column-produced spirits are usually considered lighter and quote-unquote cleaner.
Sure.
Yeah, and we're actually somewhere probably in between those two processes. I make I really make a rather clean tasting rum, but it's still got lots of flavor. It's not like a vodka or something. I like flavor, so I don't want to be stripping out all that stuff. But it's certainly not dank and stinky, which some rums purposely are. And that's just not our style.
It's funny when people say that this vodka tastes better that way. By law, vodka is tasteless, odorless, colorless. So
that's exactly right.
Unless it's flavored with vanilla or cilantro, whatever they're putting in there. Oh, I like this one over this one. Hey, good for you. I mean, there's ones that are triple filtered or even more so. There's one in Mongolia I had was really clean, filtered 50 times through black pearls and white diamonds or whatever the thing was.
Yeah.
I believe you can make cheap liquor out of anything. But to say, vodka has to be tasteless to be vodka. So unless they put something back in after the fact, who knows? Because I'm not there when they bought it. We had a doctor say that microbiology was her favorite class, her favorite lab, and that microorganisms look so beautiful under a microscope, which is great because certainly I'm not part of that world. I haven't looked at a microscope enough to say, oh, that's cool. I mean, a couple of times maybe in school with slides back in the day. But I do remember this babysitter we had. My mother was a single mom. So my sister and I went to various babysitters throughout grade school. And one of them was this kooky, really a little bit older, but she wasn't all there. I mean, and everybody knew that, but she was great with kids. She just had some interesting ways of looking at things, put it that way.
Yeah.
And one day she just stopped me. I was running because I was a kid, very active, and I was running up the stairs, something like that. She stopped me and she said, if you knew all the microorganisms inside your body and what they were doing, you'd be afraid to move. And it stayed with me the whole time, but I never figured out. I mean, I know now kind of what she was saying. I never figured out what she meant exactly. Any insight into that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's actually, I would say that's one of the hot frontiers of microbiology right now is you've probably heard this word, the microbiome, like just really kind of figuring out and realizing how much all those bacteria, fungi, parasites in our gut, how much they matter to us, whether it be, and it's often associated with good health. I mean, having a properly balanced gut microbiome is really important. And if it gets off, it can really mess up your life. I mean, there's connections to brain activity. There's connections to autoimmunity, to having immune problems. There's connections to metabolism. There's connections to vitamins. It's amazing. Every single year now, there's just more and more connections to like what our well-being is, how much that depends on what's growing inside our gut.
I think a lot of that is affected by what we eat. But do you believe in probiotics, prebiotics, anything like that?
Yeah.
Yogurt, what? Not really.
I think they're a little bit unproven still. Certainly, there's things that if you get them established in your gut, there's pretty good association with good health. But simply eating something doesn't mean it's going to colonize, stick around. It's a very complex ecosystem down there. There's hundreds of different organisms in there, and it's a complex system, and it's very likely that each of us are a little bit different. So having a universal magic pill for every single one of us is a little bit optimistic, and I would say perhaps not completely supported yet, but it's something that people are trying to achieve and kind of figure that stuff out. And that's where science comes in to find out what's really working and what's not.
I know you're not a doctor, but for the month of February, I had a condition called osteomyelitis. My jawbone was dying.
Oh,
I had a PICC line from my bicep to my heart. Every day I drive into the hospital, get a shot for a month, all of February, first day of March. And they said, that's going to kill your gut bacteria. You got to take prebiotics, probiotics.
Yeah.
And again, I know you're not a doctor, but you say maybe, I'm just going to have to recover slowly from all those antibiotics. Is that it?
Yeah. So that's what it's ironic is one of the things, this is going a little bit into like gross level. But one of the things that they really suggest, like one of my MD, like one of the physician colleagues of mine, he's an infectious disease guy. He's like, you're young and happy right now. Go and freeze your stool. Go and freeze your crap. Go and put it in like negative 100-degree deep freeze. Because someday in the future, if you have to take a real strong antibiotic that's going to clean out your gut, it's much better to basically take your old poop and put it back in you and reboot that whole system that you had when you were happy and healthy. That's so much better than taking a probiotic, or they actually do fecal transfers now, where they take feces from a healthy person, put it into a not healthy person. But it's much easier to do your own.
Let's say, first of all, have you done that?
No, I'm embarrassed to say I haven't. I should.
Okay, that tells me whether I should or not. But where would you store it? The storage charges alone for 30 years is going to be paid, right?
Yeah, that's beyond my budget probably.
Well, I think most people, but interesting idea. All right, let's get to some questions. I know you've been waiting patiently. Somebody wanted to know if you started with a small home distilling kit or jump right into commercial scale.
Yeah, I did it at home first. That is illegal. Any type of distillation at home is not allowed. There's kind of like this misinterpretation of laws that people think, oh, if you just make it for yourself and just drink it for yourself, that's okay. That's not true. Producing any type of alcohol over 20% alcohol is illegal. That being said, I did in my backyard, in my garage, and I developed a lot of.
Has expired by now, I'm sure.
Yeah, I hope it's almost like a common knowledge thing. Like, I mean, a lot of distillers got started that way.
Wink, wink,
we went legit. I mean, so that's kind of how it worked. And I developed a lot of our recipes in my garage, and that's what kind of started the whole process.
Let's talk about Vitae. What else do you make?
So rum is kind of our centerpiece. Weirdly enough, I guess in some ways, our most awarded product is our gin. We actually make a sugarcane based gin, which is quite rare. It's made from non-grain spirits. Most gins are made with basically grain spirits, the cheapest grains you can get, so corn and wheat and things of that sort. Mm-hmm. So ours is really quite different. It has a different mouthfeel because of that. And we have 18 different botanicals, herbs, and spices in there and stuff like that. So
all right.
Yeah. And it won best gin in Virginia in Drink Magazine about a year or two ago. We got a silver medal in the San Francisco World Spirits competition with it.
Okay.
We make a bunch of liqueurs too. I make an orange liqueur. It's kind of like a triple sec kind of Cointreau like thing. I make that with oranges that I collect semi-wild around Charlottesville. We have a coffee liqueur they make with a local coffee roaster, an anisette, so it's kind of like a Sambuca Ouzo thing. We have like 12 products now, and actually next week we're releasing a beer whiskey where I collaborated with a local brewery, and they gave me a bunch of their American Pilsner. I distilled it, so basically turned their beer into a whiskey, and then we put it in a bourbon barrel for a year, and we're releasing that next next week or so, and it's really amazing stuff. It's like all the hop flavors came through, but it's all malty and high octane. It's really good stuff.
And you just said people are bastardizing beer, turning it into something else. And this is why.
Yeah,
Hey,
well, there's another variation on that. So
that's it. Join the crowd, right? So, and that's okay. I love variation. Again, that's how we get more interesting things in life. That's progress to me. So if somebody wanted to try some of these, I know we keep flashing the website. Yeah. They go on there and order. And can you ship around the United States? What are the laws?
Yeah, complicated. We are not, actually, there's a little footnote to this right now. We're not allowed to ship out of Virginia. During the pandemic, they actually gave us the ability to ship within Virginia, but as it stands, that's going to be rescinded at the end of the emergency. So, they really, really cracked down on distillers at the end of Prohibition, and we are by far the most regulated and controlled part of the alcohol industry. So we are in some states. We're our home, Virginia. We're in D.C., Maryland. We're starting in New York State, June 1st.
In Arizona, that's why you're here, right?
Yep, exactly. So they're going to officially start going on sale in mid-June at our family winery. So up in Sedona, Page Spring Cellars is our family winery, and we got our distilling license up there, so we can now sell spirits at Page Spring Cellars. So we're going to start selling our spirits in the tasting room at our winery. And that's really going to be the first launching ground in Virginia for us. Sorry, in Arizona for us.
So your family's been into wine for a while.
Yeah.
And you went off. The black sheep goes into microbiology, and the prodigal son returns home and gets back into the liquor business, at least alcohol, if not wine, right?
Yeah. No, and it was very much related. I mean, because I am a part owner of our wineries. So I've worked in 2007. I worked crush. So I worked the fields. I did forklifts, trucks off. So I kind of learned the wine industry pretty well. But I'm also on the board of directors of our winery. So at the executive level, I've been involved with the wineries also, like kind of seeing the business side and all that type of stuff. And that honestly was a bit of the seed in my head to go and start kind of my own alcohol business. It was something that I had a pretty good grasp of, and I felt like I knew a good amount was going on. And there's a lot of crossover between the wine industry and the spirits industry, both at the kind of production level, but at the business level also.
We're gonna get to a couple of more questions here, and then let you go as we're coming up on 1 hour. Appreciate your time.
Sure.
When you're sitting at home, and I know you'll drink your family's wine and you'll drink your spirits.
Yeah.
But I get this question a lot because of Booze Traveler and the places I travel to. I don't know, I guess around 60 countries, just under. I've had so many different experiences. They say, well, when you're home by yourself drinking, what do you drink? And to me, the answer is depends who I'm with and what I'm doing. What does Ian Glomsky have when he's at home and wants a drink?
Well, I bring work home. Like you alluded to, I basically have a responsibility to develop cocktails. We have a tasting room. We always have a new menu. So at least one cocktail a night is my homework. So I go and start off with a cocktail right now on the front porch as I watch neighbors walk by from a safe distance. But I do drink a fair amount of watery beer in the summer. Once I mow that lawn, I want a watery beer, and I'll go and grab that. When I have a good meal, I have a lot of good wine. So it's circumstance dependent. But I really concentrate on spirits now because I find the other things to be too heavy. Not as in like weight, but like there's a lot of physical volume. When I drink a beer, that's 12 ounces of liquid in my stomach. Whereas a cocktail is kind of like a more approachable. I'm still hungry afterwards in many ways because I don't have this big load of water sitting in my stomach. So I'm becoming more and more of a spirits person.
Which is why we never heard the term whiskey belly.
Sure.
Beer belly, maybe. We had another question right before this one. Dr. Torres says, thank you for such an informative discussion. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. There was a question right before that. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember what it was exactly. So did you ever, even for a moment, when you left the halls of academia, science, the anthrax, all of this, did you ever say, maybe I shouldn't have got into distilling? Oh, and by the way, you can answer that in conjunction with this question before I forget it. Kathleen Todd says, as a moonshine maker myself, do you ever see fallen fruit and think of deliciousness that is just there laying there waiting?
Absolutely. I mean, like fruit that has become unmarketable in some shape or form, even just because of ugliness. That is the classic feedstock of distillation. It's a way to kind of reuse all these things that maybe it's ugly, but still tastes just fine. And so that's what, yeah, I look at that stuff all the time. And part of the fun of me being a distiller right now, I mean, I do like kind of the business aspects of it, but inventing new products is really where I get most of my fun. So I'm always looking for new fruits, I'm looking for new herbs, all that type of stuff. So yeah, I look at everything. I'm like, can I turn that into booze?
So you never look back with regret and say, I shouldn't have left.
Yeah, very little. There was only one distinct moment that I remember. So I basically had a trainee, a guy who was a postdoc. He already had his PhD, and I was mentoring him, and he basically made it. He got his first big government grant. He's a professor, all that type of stuff, and he wrote me a really nice letter thanking me for all that I did for him to get him to that place. And I have to admit, I had to like clean my eye out. I had a little tear going, just because, like, as much as I enjoy the day-to-day of what I do as a distiller, it may be a stretch to say that I will be that much of an impact on someone's life in a positive way. And that was like one of those moments where like, but in the grand scheme of things, on a day-to-day basis, I'm much happier doing now what I was doing back when I was a professor.
At the same time, of course, less of a chance they're going to name a vaccine after you now, or some kind of method like a pasteurization. So,
Yeah.
in your honor, I'm going to invent a cocktail with Vitae rum and mix something up and call it the Glomsky, with your permission.
Okay, it's an awkward name, but I'd love to have it.
And I'll send you the recipe. Okay.
Awesome. I'll be waiting on my pins and needles, waiting for that.
Here's to you, Ian. Thank you so much. That was fascinating because
Absolutely.
I learned so much about both sides of it. And I get you and everyone else out there. There's no joking about what's going on. So please stay safe, because we all want to see all of you again sometime. And again, you can join me on my YouTube channel for Belly Up. The High Road is 8:30 every Friday, 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific. And also then Jack's Place, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sundays. Thank you to Ian Glomsky. What a fascinating guest. And he makes a good rum. So he's a good guy in my book. I'd like to thank my producer, who I don't thank often enough. His name is Ken Coburn. Ken, are you there? Can you pop up your picture so everybody can see? He's also he's hiding behind that. He's also there. He is. He's also the judge. If you ever watch my show Belly Up on YouTube as well, he's the judge. All the close answers go to him, and he decides, and I leave it to him. But he produces all my shows: Belly Up, The High Road, Jack's Place, and we got so much more coming. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining. We'll see you again. Have a great rest of the weekend. The few hours that are left, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.